is number one, why search matters, why it should matter to just about every business out there. We'll walk through some basics of search engine optimization, and then we will, I'll walk you through 3 keys to SEO success really in 2013. And then we'll talk about briefly talk about a couple of measurement basics that you want to be thinking through to make sure that you any SEO program that you have is really remains accountable. So first, you know, really it has to be said that that what I'm going to talk about today is just the tip of the iceberg. I could spend hours and hours and hours talking about SEO, and should we ever meet, there's a good chance that I might do that. So just bear that in mind. So why search matters? You know, one of the kind of philosophies I want to talk a little bit about is that there's different schools of marketing out there. This is a quote that I love, is that we need to stop interrupting people what people are interested, stop interrupting what people are interested in, and be what people are interested in. And what I mean by that is when you look at things like what I kind of call interruption marketing. So you can imagine your interruption marketing encompasses, you know, a lot of different daily activities, whether you're watching TV and all of a sudden there's a commercial, whether you're reading you know, an article in the New York Times and there's display advertising kind of distracting you from what you're trying to do. All those things are increasingly irrelevant, and it inherently makes a lot of sense that those are not necessarily as effective as what we'll talk about in just a second. And just to drive the point home, there's a few stats that, you know, 86% of people skip TV ads, only 14% of people actually trust advertisements, and that's a long-term trend that we've been seeing going down and down and down. On the other hand, you have something that's loosely known as inbound marketing, where marketers align themselves with their audiences, earning attention and drawing customers into their sales funnel. So what I mean by that is, when you think about it, when someone goes to Google and they search for purple shoes, for instance, they're really raising their hand and telling you as a marketer exactly what they're looking for. And if you are a shoe retailer who happens to specialize in purple shoes, then there's a real match there. So that's what I mean. That's the difference from inbound marketing, which kind of flips it from interrupting to trying to be in a place where your audience is raising their hand, telling you exactly what they're interested in. At a much larger scale, there's no doubt about it that search is really the de facto way that people navigate the internet. It's how people look for all sorts of information, everything from electronics to appliances to, you know, I worked for a mattress manufacturer a few years ago, and their internal research showed that I think 85% of people actually research their mattress purchase online before they make a decision. There's another stat from, I think, Pew that came out in the last couple of weeks that showed that upwards of 80% of Americans search for health information before making a significant health decision. In fact, you know, 80% of internet traffic begins at a search engine. And what is really interesting is that we are in the midst of another massive shift in how we consume digital information. It's moving away from the desktop and really to mobile devices. Microsoft estimated that by 2014 or 2015 that the amount of internet traffic generated by mobile devices will surpass desktop traffic, which is really an amazing, startling statistic. Kind of getting back to that concept I talked about how people, they raise their hands when they search for something. That's exactly what each query is. They're asking you to present, they're looking for relevant businesses and brands that are going to fit their needs. So I want to, next we're going to walk through some basics about search engine optimization. Where I want to start with is just some basic anatomy. So when you look at the results that are shaded are, of course, the ads up top and down the side. And the organic results are right there underneath, the ones that are not grayed out. There's no shortage of research that shows that organic results have much greater trust and receive significantly more traffic than the paid results, which makes a lot of sense when you consider the attitudes people have in general to advertisements. One thing that is important to understand is that search engine optimization is most definitely a process, not an event. So increasing organic visibility is a long-term process. These are earned results. They're kind of tantamount to the editorial content in a newspaper, the actual news of the newspaper versus the ads. On the other hand, paid search ads can be nearly immediate. They can get you quick visibility, and they're actually quite a good way to gain some additional insights into what people are searching for and what kind of search terms work. So in terms of how people really consume and look at search results, there's been a concept that's loosely known as sort of the golden triangle, which you see on the left. Essentially, people look at the top of the search results a lot more than they do at the bottom, which of course is inherently intuitive. And on the right, that shows what's the click-through rate by position. So these are, I stacked 3 different studies in there over the last, from the last 5 years that look at what are the click-through rates by position. So you can see that there is a dramatic difference between not just 1 versus 10, but 1 versus 2. It really makes a significant difference to get to the first result. And just to reiterate that point, 75% of people for some search results click on the first page. What we often find is that when someone's searching, if they don't find what they're looking for on the first page, that they'll either, some people, a small percentage will go to the second page. Many people will simply just do a different query. So what is SEO? Well, SEO is a set of strategies that's designed to increase the visibility of a site in the organic search results for specific search terms. And I think that it's important to point out that it's not necessarily just where you rank that matters. It's not just about your site, but it's also about what are those other sites saying about you. And what I mean by that is, it's often been said that the first page of Google is the new front page of the New York Times. It's the new battlefield for your reputation. So if I encourage all of you to go out, search for your company name, search your brand and product name, search for, perhaps key executives, and look and see if, what are the, not just where do you come up, but what are the other results say about you. I've worked on a number of different programs where, say for instance, our client site is coming up number 1, but 2 through 10, part of those anyway, are not exactly flattering for that brand. So in those situations, that's something that you want to look into is how can you stack that front page with positive content that's going to reinforce the sale, that's going to reinforce your key messages that you're trying to communicate, and it's going to ultimately encourage people to move further into the sales funnel. So digging a little deeper into this, from our perspective, in 2013, there are really 4 different pillars of SEO. And what I mean by that is there's 4 basic, maybe levers, I guess would be a better way to look at it, that different levers that you can pull to adjust how your site ranks within Google. The first are technical things, so things relating to the site, how your site is coded, what CMS you're using, how it's architected, all those sorts of things. The next are things related to content, and we'll delve into content in a lot more detail in just a moment, but content is really becoming very foundational for success. It always has been, but it's taking on increasing importance. So what are the elements of key content are, 7, 8 years ago, it might have been things related to just make sure that you have the keywords that you want to rank for within your content. It's really evolved since then, so it's not simply about including keywords in your content. It's about making really compelling, interesting content that your audience is going to find value in. The next major bucket is link building. So the quantity and quality of links that are coming into your site. So what other third-party sites are linking to you? The name of the game is to really earn those inbound links from other sites. From Google's perspective, this is really where they founded. Google was their first algorithm was based on something called PageRank that essentially viewed the different links coming into a site as a citation for that site. It harkens back to the founders looked at how scientific papers were kind of rated, and the more citations that a scientific paper had, the higher its worth was deemed. So they applied that same principle to the web. So generally speaking, the more links, especially from high-quality sites you have, the more you're going to rank. And then one kind of emerging thing that we're seeing is that social media is having not just an indirect impact, but a direct impact on how sites are ranked. So there are some existing interesting correlational studies that look at social media activity and how a site ranks, and there's definitely a strong correlation between those two factors. So it's in fact, Google admitted that they're looking at social signals in terms of how they're ranking sites. So we believe that that's still a fairly insignificant portion of how they determine where a site ranks, but nonetheless, it's important to know. So I wanted to talk specifically about 3 different keys to SEO success. So, this has always been the cornerstone of SEO, is basically finding the keywords that really matter to your business. So when we talk about keywords, it's important to understand that keywords are not simply, I'm not just talking about individual words, we're talking about really phrases that searchers enter into a search engine. And typically by using keywords in your content, through your site, a site can be deemed more relevant. So how do you go about that? How do you identify the right keywords? It all begins with thinking about how your searchers are, how they're going about looking for the products and services that you offer. So another point is that it's not really just about getting more visitors; it's about getting the right kind of visitors. And one concept we often talk about in the world of search marketing is not just driving more traffic, but more qualified traffic. So you might, it's much better to have people who might be more apt to buy something from you than obviously just somebody who's not. So when you go through the keyword research process, the way we approach it is with 4 different kind of distinct buckets. It really begins with brainstorming, so thinking like how your audience, like how would they search for your offerings? And we use that to develop an initial list of search terms. You can do it in Excel, you can do it in a Notepad, you can do it there's any number of different ways you can approach that. The next thing we recommend is looking at what are some quantitative sources of data that you can tap into. So there are no shortage of online tools that you can use. The most popular one is, of course, Google. They have a tool that I'll mention in the next slide in more detail that provides information on what people are searching for. You can also look at what keywords is your competition using. And then you can also look at your web analytics is a good source, and there's some other tools out there. So once you have kind of that expanded list, next what we do is we look at how can we assess these keywords using quantitative data. So we'll look at keyword popularity from Google, and at the same time we always recommend you have to balance popularity with relevance. That really, I can't emphasize that enough. And then once you have that, I always find it very useful to categorize the keywords. So you put them into categories. You can prioritize them in descending order. So this is a screenshot of what the Google AdWords keyword research tool looks like. And so it's quite simple to use, and if you simply search for Google AdWords keyword tool, you'll see this pop up to the top. So it's very simple to use. You simply type in a word or phrase up at the top, and you click search, and then you'll get all kinds of results that include interesting bits of data like the number of monthly searches, which gives you a sense of how popular a given term is. So this is a screenshot of a version of our keyword analysis and how we actually approach it. So we have, in this screenshot, you'll see the keywords listed in the first column, different categories. We pull Google and Yahoo rankings. And then there's three main metrics we look at. Relatively speaking, how popular is a search term? How difficult is it to rank for? And how relevant is it to a specific business? And then we combine all those through an algorithm into a single score that allows us to kind of neatly prioritize things. So keyword research is the foundation. So if that's the foundation, the next thing you want to do is to get a lot of the basics right. That will move you from ranking 200 to maybe in the 20s or 30s. So how do you build a strong foundation? It begins with the platform that your website lives on. So a search-friendly CMS is essential. There's no shortage of search-friendly CMSs. Some of the most popular ones are WordPress, of course, Drupal, Joomla, .NET Nuke. Those can all be extraordinarily search-friendly with the right technical setup and the right extensions or add-ons if necessary. We always recommend creating a unique title tag for every page. We'll look at some of these in more detail in the next couple slides. We recommend drafting unique description tags for every page, using keywords for internal links within your site, incorporating keywords into your copy, and using descriptive URLs. These are all very basic recommendations that you can go out and make on your site, and they're completely within your control. So title tags. Title tags are, it's one of the most important elements that you can change on your site. So essentially, the title tag it's a bit of code that sits within the source code of your page that it provides the title for the page. And as you can see in the example on the right, I have a screenshot of what it looks like in the source code, and in the Google results, you can see how it shows up there. So you can start to kind of imagine that not only is it important because it can help you rank higher, it's also important because it shows in the search results. So if you craft this, you should try to incorporate keywords into your title tag as well as your brand. You should really try to limit it to no more than 70 characters because that's typically where Google will truncate it at, and make sure that it's unique for each page. At the same time, you want to not just incorporate keywords, you want to try to include a kind of a compelling marketing message. You can imagine that it's sort of like an ad. So, you know, on the one hand, you want keywords in there to help you rank. On the other hand, you want a marketing message there to compel them to click through to your site. So the description tag, like the title tag, the description tag is something. It's meta information, so it's kind of behind the scenes. Most users don't see it directly, and in fact it doesn't affect the ranking of your site directly. But what it does do is it shows up in the search results page. So it can in fact have an impact on the click-through rate. So we encourage you to write an accurate description of each page. Make sure that it's unique for each page, and try to limit that to 160 characters approximately or less. So internal links. So internal links are the links within your site. One common pitfall that I've encountered for more than the past decade is that when people build a site, oftentimes they will default to doing things like using phrases like read more, learn more, click for more, those sorts of things. The problem is when our friendly little Googlebot on the left there, when he looks at those kind of pages, that tells him nothing about what's on the other side of the pages. Obviously, he can click through and he can read those pages and get a sense of what those are about. But by including keywords within the links, we're telling him more directly what is on the other side. So, another analogy that I use is if you imagine you're in a hallway and there's a lot of doors. Well, if every one of those doors just said enter here or open door, you're not going to know what's on the other side of the door. But if you start putting up meaningful labels, you say the marketing department, accounting, payroll, etc., that is going to allow you to navigate the building and get where you need to go. So URL best practices. URLs are important because, again, they impact both how your site ranks as well as the user's click decision. So I'm going to actually go back a couple slides. So you can see in the search result there that the URL is mentioned in there. So there's actually been research that suggests that the URL that's used is going to impact the decision of a user to click through or not. So some research suggests that up to 20% of the decision on whether or not to click through on a result is based upon the URL. So often what we recommend is ensuring that you're using descriptive words in URLs. Avoid dynamic URLs, which means like you've probably seen the URLs where it's marysbakery.com, question mark, page ID equals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Something like that is something you want to avoid. Rather than doing that, we recommend including something that's descriptive and brief. Generally speaking, a best practice is if you can look at a URL and make a reasonable guess at what's on the other end of that URL, then you're on the right track. The third best practice for 2013 is to become a content publisher, and this at first glance seems kind of crazy, kind of rather counterintuitive, but we'll get there. So oftentimes there there's a real belief that you can shortcut your way to SEO. There's some magic secret sauce that you can just sprinkle on your website and you'll be off to the races. The reality is that you need to start with your audience's needs and not simply with a list of keywords. And although keywords are important, your audience needs to always be kind of a central focus. So why is that? In 2011, and it's continuing through the present day, Google released a couple of major algorithm updates that were collectively known as the Penguin and Panda updates. And what the goal of those algorithm updates from Google was, they wanted to chop some of the low quality content publishers off. So they wanted to reduce their visibility. There were no shortage of sites like Answers.com, eHow, those sorts of sites. Just their research found that people weren't finding a lot of value, so they were clicking through those sites and then clicking back quickly to the search results pages, which was a signal to Google that, hey, these sites, they're not that great. So what Google, at the end of the day, what we found is that in order to break through the clutter and get past this Panda update, you really need to have original content on your website. So the content, ideal aspects of what that content looks like is that it's content that has the potential to be shared. It doesn't have to be earth-shattering. It doesn't have to be necessarily groundbreaking. You don't need to spend thousands of dollars to produce Pulitzer-winning content. But what it does mean is that you need to be active in, at the very least, let's say you're a retailer, you need to at least not just take the product descriptions that you're are given from a manufacturer. You need to at least craft those, spin those, customize those a bit so that it's original content unique to your site. When one thing that I've often found could be effective when you're looking at very complex sort of topics is, how can you take those topics and distill them into easy to understand, easy to digest visual information. So, one really good way to do that is through simple videos or infographics. So the screenshot there is of an economist walking through, I think that was walking through the fiscal cliff stuff maybe. So he has a little whiteboard up and he just walks the user, he has a script, he walks the user through, he does little drawings to kind of showcase how the fiscal cliff, how it's going to go down, what the consequences are, etc. Infographics are another way to distill very complex information down into something that is much more digestible, is much more shareable. So rather than having paragraph after paragraph of text, breaking it up with graphics, using infographics, those are great tactics to develop content. And by the way, the screenshot on the left is from a site called mint.com, which is a nifty little personal finance management platform, and they do a great job of rolling out really compelling infographics. So what this all means is that long term, you can kind of fake it for a little while, particularly in uncompetitive sectors. But long term, if you're in a competitive sector, you're going to need to distinguish yourself by creating unique content. So that can be things like, if you have industry research, if you do industry surveys, that can be distilled into a blog post or a white paper. You want to have a perspective on the emerging topics within your industry, whether that's related to news analysis, to emerging news, emerging trends, what's next, all those sorts of things. Multimedia content is great. infographics are great. Bringing in other third parties, asking them to blog on your behalf can be a good way to get some more unique content. And so at the end of the day, what does all of this do for you? You know, it gets you hopefully referenced by more industry blogs, mentioned in the media. You know, you're cited at industry conferences as a thought leader. And from a search perspective, you get more inbound links, which is really the name of the game. So you're not only accomplishing a lot of the brand marketing thought leadership goals, but you're also accomplishing some of those long-term SEO goals as well. So where can you kind of get content ideas? That's a common topic, and quite frankly, it's one we struggle with at times. There's no shortage of places to look. It can be as simple as looking in Twitter and seeing what people are talking about within your industry. So doing a Twitter search. Looking at, can you segment your audience? And you probably know you obviously know your audience is better than just about anybody. So once you segment them out into logical groups, look at what are their needs, what are the questions they're asking. You can look at competitors and see if they're doing anything interesting. Customer feedback is a great place to look. So are there frequently asked questions that you often get through the sales process maybe that you could address? You can look at other industry blogs. There's a site called Quora that is a great little site that it's kind of the evolution of a Yahoo Answers or Ask.com. And if you go in there and search for topics from within your industry, you can get a sense of what people are asking, what kind of information people are looking for. So that can kind of point you in the right direction. I should also say that one other source is looking at the keywords that you're researching. So if you find that people are there's common questions that are coming up within your keyword research, then of course that's a great thing to address as well within any content you're creating. So very briefly, measuring success. How do you do that? Why does it matter? First, you know, we always think that when you look at how do you measure SEO, it's important to understand that rankings do not equate with SEO success. All too often, people will say, "Oh, you know, it's great that you're number 7 now for the import-export business." But what does that really mean? Really, your focus needs to be on establishing KPIs and trying to tie that back to your search program. So we've listed 6 steps to really ramping up your measurement program. And again, it begins with identifying the right KPIs, the right business measurements that you can measure online. So whether it's you know, the number of leads that are coming in, the number of sales, it could be in some cases just sort of engagement metrics. That's the starting point. So you want to take that and create measurement goals for yourself. So what do you want to achieve in the next 3, 6, 9, 12 months? And then number 4, of course, is when you do the actual optimization itself. And then you want to do, on a monthly basis, you want to measure the organic search traffic, looking at those KPIs. So if you're using Google AdWords, you need to ensure that you have the right goals set up so that you're tracking the goals effectively within Google AdWords. If you're using another platform, it's just the same. You want to make sure that you have the conversion information. And you know, oftentimes it's much easier to look at. You can look at individual keywords, and you can get the conversion information. But to look at if you look at a program holistically, if you look at all the organic search traffic, what are the trends, particularly year over year, if you're in a very seasonal business, that is a good way to look at it, and it's going to be more effective than zeroing in on month-to-month sort of stuff. Then you can also look for opportunities within that web analytics data, and what I mean by that is if you combine your any sort of rankings data plus traffic data, if you notice that, let's say that that you've noticed that rather for the first time you're getting you're getting some traffic for an unbranded search term like purple shoes, and then you look at your ranking, you say, oh well, I'm ranked number 11 for purple shoes. What that can tell you is we know that very few people click through to the second page, so if you can just apply, you know, whether it's more links, more optimization, more focus on your website on that particular keyword, then you might move up from page 2 to page 1. So just to wrap things up, I included a couple of resources. The first is a site called SEO Moz. They have a great little beginner's guide to SEO that is free and available to the public. Another site that is kind of emerged as the industry leading source for news and changes and updates in the world of searches, search engine land. They have no shortage of resources. The screenshot is of what they call the periodic table of SEO ranking factors. So I encourage you to check those out. With that is it. So if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
All right, Andrew, I do not see that there's any questions. I think you covered the topic very well. For those of you who would like to review the presentation again, it will be available on our website at www.extrahelpinc.com. It'll be under the blog section later this afternoon. So if you want to review anything over or take a look, feel free to do that. We also want to thank Andrew for participating today, and join us for our next webinar, which will be next month on March 21st, again at 1 p.m. And I think you guys will be fairly pleased. We're having another marketing professional come in and talk again about you know, the different ins and outs for businesses. So just log on and be looking for an invitation in your email. Thank you for joining us.